Hey guys, welcome back. We're still into week 11 and so far so good. Still haven't done my third water change, but likely to do that tomorrow. I did just clean the glass and test the salinity. So our salinity is around 1.025, just hovering slightly above it. The reason I did that is because the coral were a little bit closed up. Someone had mentioned, one of the subscribers had mentioned that because the rack is so close to the light, to monitor that closely, because I don't want that the hammer coral bleaching. It seems to be okay now that I've turned on the light. I did have all the black lights on. Again, those are recommendations that were made by the community. But the reason we're getting into this video today is actually someone had mention an RODI system. And for those of you guys that are new, if you're new to the hobby, this is a great channel to learn from. I'm 11 weeks into the hobby and continuing to learn from more experienced reefers here that are helping me along. So if you're new, you want to subscribe and follow along. So essentially what I'm going to talk about today is an RODI unit. And what I'll do is I'll try to show it above in the screen. What it is, it's essentially a way to eliminate impurities from water. And right now I'm running this aquarium purely off of tap water. I know that it's a big no-no. I've been told by my more experienced reefing buddy, if you want to be long-term sustainable in this hobby, you have to get a water system. And the big hindrance for me, again, is space and setting it up. But I did have someone, one of our subscribers, kindly link or recommend a water system that's easy to hook up to the tap. And I was looking it up. It's on Amazon for around 150 Canadian dollars. It seems pretty reasonable. So I think I'm going to really consider getting that. But for those of us that aren't familiar with water systems, what it stands for, our RODI system, is reverse osmosis and deionization. So essentially, what the RODI system does is it filters tap water in multiple stages to remove the following, okay? So chlorine, chloramines, heavy metals, okay? So things like copper and lead, right? Nitrates and phosphates, silicates, which ultimately can create algae problems in tanks. So again, my buddy was saying to me, you want to get away from tap water because you're going to have algae problems. And again, I'm only 11 weeks in, so I have not experienced that, thankfully. What it also does is it gets rid of dissolved minerals and any chemicals and contaminants in our water. Now, I live in Western Canada, so our water sources are pretty fresh. That said, you may experience a totally different result than me depending on where you live, right? I don't know. Some places maybe have well water. Some places have, old piping systems. And, when that water pours out of your tap, you don't necessarily want to drink it yourself, let alone have livestock and sensitive specimens like coral in them, right? And so essentially what the water system does, to be honest, is the result is nearly a pure water, right? So pure H2O, and it gives you total control, if you think about it, of what actually goes into your aquarium. And there's a couple of reasons, based on the research, as to why this matters. And one, I think the biggest reason, guys, that I keep being told time and time again is prevention of algae. So tap water, the reason tap water creates algae is because there's nitrates and phosphates and silicates, which ultimately fuel algae. So our RODI helps get rid of those trace elements in the water before they even enter the tank, okay? The second big reason to get a water system, and I'm starting to realize this, is to protect your livestock and your coral. So if you're investing in your livestock and you actually want them to be healthy and live a long time, same with your coral. Maybe you have, you spent a good amount of money on some coral, you don't want to lose them, you want to protect them. So anything you're introducing in, especially the water source, should be free of metals and contaminants. And the other part too is when I'm doing a water change, it introduces consistency, right? You're putting in clean water, whereas when I do a water change, like I have to let the water sit, dechlorinate, or use a dechlorinator and let it sit for a number of days. Then I'm mixing the water. I feel if I had a fresh water source, and I know you guys, a lot of you guys have said do distilled, right? Do distilled because it's still better than tap water. I'll be honest, I haven't done that yet. And also, apparently it's helpful. The number 3 reason is it allows salt mixes. They're designed to be mixed with pure water. So if your source water varies, your tank chemistry will shift. So again, I think consistency is good for your livestock, right? And maintaining your tank. Now that I've added the light, I think things are looking a little bit better. Again, I did have the lights off because my algae was starting to act up, but I just took the blade on it. So I guess the big consensus, guys, is do we really need a water system? I've had fellows at the local aquarium shop tell me that they've been running tanks for over a decade and have only used tap water. That was like the convincing logic that I used when buying the system. I know that I should have an RODI system, and as I said, I'm really considering buying one. So if you guys have a recommendation, please pin it in the comments. If there's any other reefers that have been in the hobby a long time and using tap water, let us know how you manage it, please, in the comments. I think it'll be helpful to others, because for me, it was a big deterrent. I thought, oh man, I got to buy a water system. I got to buy all this equipment. And you know what? I just jumped into the hobby, listened to folks, and also watched some videos that indicated that you could run a system with tap water. Obviously, you're not going to be able to keep necessarily the more sophisticated stuff. If someone is running tap water only system and has sophisticated coral and the tank's been established for, let's say, longer than a year or two, please let us know in the comments. It'd be interesting, right? So the question is, do you really need one? So if you plan to keep corals, it's recommended that you have one. If your tank is medium to large size, also recommended that you have one. And if you're concerned with long-term stability, like my friend Brandon says, if you want to be successful in the hobby, you should have one. And again, also if you're doing regular water changes, which makes sense. And, after doing some research, it says you might actually get away with not having one if you fit the following parameters, and that's a fish-only tank, a very small setup, and actually, as an alternative, you can buy the RODI water or use tap water if it's unusually clean. And I'm thinking maybe I'm in that scenario where my tap water is unusually clean, because when I was using my tap water for my fresh water tanks, I would test the purity of the water. And it usually, after you let it sit, I found I always had more success letting it sit as opposed to using dechlorinator and introducing that dechlorinated water in. As an alternative, most fish stores, local fish stores, will have an RODI system, and they'll gladly sell you the water. They'll also sell pre-mixed water. The pros are no upfront equipment costs, but as I said, for 150 Canadian dollars, 100 US dollars, you can get a simple system. And, another deterrent for me is actually installing the system. I want something I can throw on the counter, hook up to the sink, and then put it under the sink, right? So the cons of not having it is obviously you have to buy it. The quality of the water is going to vary from geography to geography. And, it's not necessarily that convenient to have to go and source water. So I think a lot of folks end up buying one in the hobby. I mean, maybe that's a question for those of you guys that have one. Like, how long before you invested in an RODI system? Was it relatively quick, like 1 to 3 months? Or was it at like the 6-month mark once you knew you were going to stick in the hobby? Like, when did you buy it at the outset? Let us know, guys. It's important. So, again, the research says typical upfront cost for an RODI system is around $150 to $300. And the filters, they do have different membranes, I think, that you replace, or filters. And what I had asked in the comments was, how many membranes are in your system? Is it a 3-membrane system or a 4-membrane system? If someone could answer that, that would be awesome. And I guess the big thing is, you can make your water at home, right? And I think for reef keepers, consistency and convenience is a huge line. So the bottom line, I think if you are going to stick around in the hobby, it's probably a worthwhile investment. And, you know, from what I understand, it's one of the best upgrades aside from a water top-off unit. And that's also on my wish list. And if you haven't seen my wish list video, do check that one out. Aside from that, you know, again, we're running the 13.5 gallon Fluval C tank. And, you know, maybe because of the size of the tank, I've been able to get away with a tap water system only. As you see, I tested my water there for salinity and we're doing okay. The tank is slowly maturing, but there is more algae. I remember when I started the tank week 1, and if you watch my earlier videos, the tank was looking very, very clean. Also, you know, sometimes I know when I started the tank, I had at least 6 hermit crabs, and to be honest, I'm finding them harder and harder to find in the system. They are in there. There's one shell in there. I have some red legs and blue legs, but I'm also starting to think, did the pistol shrimp start pulling them in? As you see, there's a snail shell there. Well, there is a hermit crab shell there. There is a red leg right there, and another Mexican crab right there. But all in all, guys, as I said, I'm really enjoying the hobby. Look at these beautiful clownfish. They're actually very tiny, but when you take the camera nice and close, you see they're super entertaining to watch. And, you know, before this, I'd have to take a trip to the aquarium to see this. Again, guys, if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. There's both, you know, I try to bring you guys value and entertainment, and hopefully you're learning something from this series if you're new to reefing. And if not for me, you know, the subscriber base is, again, you know, providing very helpful insights in our comments section. And again, thank you to everyone that contributes. And even if you are a first timer to the channel and you have something to share, or you know, an experience or any recommendations, again, all of your guidance is absolutely valued. So thank you so much and have a great day.